We have no one from the public here. Do we have a request for adjustments?
Nothing this month.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Yeah, all right, all in favor,
Second.
say aye.
Aye.
All right, we've done that. SJRA is not here. That's all good. We'll catch up with that on, in January.
Yeah, I think I had one update on the vault. The vault
yeah.
hatch has been ordered and will be delivered in early March is what the report is for the,
Okay.
the
Low
dam
flow.
low flow, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, attorney report.
Hello, so Katie, I'm here filling in for Brian again. He is on his Christmas family vacation. They left, I think yesterday, so he had to miss this meeting. I don't have anything under item 9 to report.
Okay. Very good. So the next item is the implementation of the PUCT's rules relating Senate Bill 3, and I see you handed out something else tonight.
Yes, so items 10 and 11 are connected. And I guess not all you were on the board during Winter Storm Uri, but basically as a result of Winter Storm Uri, that passed Senate Bill 3, which kind of created the definition of extreme weather emergency. And you had already updated your policy manual RNS 14 to kind of account for what SB 3 required. But the Senate also tasked the Public Utility Commission, the PUC, with promulgating some rules for all retail water and sewer providers. And so they have just not finished doing that. And so we have a few updates. So we kind of explain everything in this memo, which is just passed out for you for your reference. And if you have any questions, let me know. But the main takeaways are that an extreme weather emergency is when it's all a bit convoluted, of course, because it's two different governmental bodies creating these rules. But it's when it's a period when the previous day's highest temperature did not exceed 28 degrees Fahrenheit. And the temperature is predicted to remain at or below 28 degrees Fahrenheit for the next 24 hours. And at that, and that is all based on the area you're in. So it's not a county or citywide determination. Basically, Woodlands Water, your operator will just have to check the National Weather Service reports that are closest to
Maybe
you.
facing
Yeah.
what's
Get ready.
the next few days.
But
Right.
it's only if it stays below 28 degrees. So this weekend shouldn't be an issue at all because it'll rise back above 28 degrees. It won't stay below that for 48 hours.
48 or 24?
So it's when it's already been 28 degrees for a day, and then when the weather report says it'll stay below 28 degrees for the next 24 hours. So it's gonna be a 2-day period when it's below 28
Okay, I
degrees.
missed that.
And
We may have it.
Yeah.
The forecast I got from, the high-tech reliable source could happen here.
oh,
Yeah.
don't tell me
Yeah.
that. Okay, well, what I was saying was that it was gonna rise above 28 at some point.
Yeah,
during the
I was
day.
hoping that, but the
Yeah.
last information I had was maybe not.
Well, it will end on the second business day, the temperature exceeds 28 degrees Fahrenheit. So it can start and then it may take a little longer for it to come to an end, when there's 2 business days of it being above 28 degrees Fahrenheit. So, basically you are not allowed to turn off anyone's water during that time, during the weather emergency. You can't turn anyone off, which I don't think y'all did, and you wouldn't.
For non-payment.
Anyway, yeah, for non-payment of a bill that's due during the extreme
Gotcha.
weather emergency. And the other part of it is that if someone requests a payment plan within 30 days of the end of the extreme weather emergency relating to a bill that was due during the extreme weather emergency, then you do have to provide them some sort of payment plan. But the board in the district has a good deal of discretion with what payment plan.
We do that whether it's an extreme
Yeah.
weather event or not.
Yeah.
And we offer payment plans to routinely to folks that ask for it. So
Yeah,
Beautiful.
so it should just be a very narrow situation when this arises, and Woodlands Water will stay on top of it. But the PUC does require that this 1-page notice, they're only requiring it in English and Spanish, be distributed to all district customers prior to January 31st. So this is the only board that's actually meeting this month, but the others will all approve it next month, but it'll go out in the bills.
And
it's
we've already prepared it. We've got it to the printer to go as an insert in the bill
Yeah,
and a press release or a e-blast ready to go with it as well. So we're set to pull the trigger, but
and this is the PUC's required language for the notice, so nothing fancy. It's just telling them when an extreme weather emergency is and that they have the option to request a payment plan.
Does the operator have to post anything on the website to say we've now declared this a extreme weather event, or is it just
Rules that they
internally?
I don't think require that, but I think y'all are pretty good about communicating with the residents. So I think if one did occur, would y'all? post
again,
something?
this doesn't ask us to do anything we're not already doing. So I say, it'll be in the January bill, but I don't know that it's necessary.
Pronounce.
Pronounce it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because we do it anyway. If you want a payment plan, you just call and ask.
But if somebody calls and references this, you have to be able to respond. We either have or do not have per this action. We're going to take care of you, but it's not because of this,
We're
right?
doing it anyway.
Okay.
And not all districts do offer payment plans all the time. And so, or not all operators do. So it may affect some more than others, but in the Woodlands, I guess y'all do. So in front of you, you just have a memo that's just for your reference. You have this, you may not have this notice, but it's on the Google Drive. And you have a red line of the policy manual changes, which are pretty minor since we had already built in SB3. It's mainly about the payment plan stuff.
Oh, I see.
Because that was something that wasn't in there before. But the motion that we need for today is to authorize your operator to distribute the notice and then to approve the changes to RNS 14.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the extreme weather event and sending out the policy and sending out the letter in the snail mail bill.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. And that brings us to 12, right, Katie?
Yes.
You covered those two.
Yes.
Okay. Number 12 is our year-end customer communication. And it's in our packets, and I had a couple of changes, and I bet you guys probably had some comments too. So number one,
Which version? So John shared with me two
Oh, yeah.
versions of it, right?
yeah. So
And-
I'm working off the one that's in our
I see the one
packet.
that's in the packet. I think they're both great, by the way. I think
Yeah.
Page is that on in the packets?
27,
I've got it here.
thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so page 27 in the packet, and that's what I'm reading.
We pick one version over the other, or we both?
I think Laura, we.
Yeah, the one on page 27 is the one I picked.
Okay.
Because of, what was it? It was the other one had the lines and it didn't give us the real estate, and this
This-
one had less categories. This version has less categories. It just has the two,
Mhm.
what you did in 22
Yeah.
and what are you gonna do in 23? And so I like
this
that.
one. It was easy to read. It's succinct.
good show. Thank you.
I don't like it at all.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, different things, you.
No, it's good. I like it as well. I like,
great.
actually, I like having our email addresses there, and some
Great.
things about the election I think were helpful.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Are
Yes.
you cool with your email there at the,
You know what?
mhm.
With the mud email.
I need to talk to somebody about this email.
Oh, get that hooked up. Maureen is she's not only the lead accountant, but IT, right? Right. Yeah.
Yes.
In the right direction.
CIO and CFO.
But
So,
otherwise, I'm fine. It's
okay,
just
good show.
My inability.
For ease of, because I've been doing this for 6 years, and this year I finally got my email hooked up. So what I did, because I'm not a Microsoft person, I downloaded the Microsoft app on my phone. So if anybody sends me a MUD email, I can see that I've got more accounts and like texts coming in. So it made it easy for me not to do it on my mainframe computer at home.
It works on all of them, actually.
Well, yeah, but you're more into that technology too than I am. You wouldn't believe, for all the websites I do, I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, so we're, at least the three of us are cool with having our email. Do we want to reach out to Diane and Paul and see if they're okay with putting their emails on there?
Is it published on the website? If you go out and you see the names of the directors, it's not an active link to go email them? Okay. I need to ask them, I guess. I think, I mean, it's WWA email. It's not like a personal email,
Right,
right?
that's true.
Because it's not personal
Yeah.
emails.
Yeah.
Right, okay, I like that.
Are those, do they have theirs activated to your knowledge?
Y'all two, I'm not sure.
I'm talking about Paul
Other
and
two.
Paul, not sure.
I tried to
Yeah.
get
I don't know.
something.
I sent him an email on that and never got any back, but
I don't think he uses it. And that's part of the struggle. I mean,
A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
He may not.
It was one of them until recently, last year. Okay, well, I agree they are the property of Woodlands Water, so we could go ahead and put them out there. And they
Makes
just
sense.
wouldn't respond if someone
Yeah.
does reach out. I've done this in the past on a other board I was on, and I was worried about getting a lot of contacts, but I didn't. And I wound up being good friends with
I think it's
a
part of
lot
the
of
rule.
people.
Yeah,
It is.
it's part
And
of the
I
rule.
wound up being good friends with a lot of people that reached out. So it's really a great thing. And I hope we do get feedback, if we can improve.
just a couple of points under the looking ahead to 2023, begin the drainage improvement project on Bear Branch. Just so you'll know, you won't see any construction activity during 2023. The first year of that primarily is just recalculating, rebuilding the hydraulics and hydraulic model. So you're not going to see any actual construction activity during this period.
Cool.
we're spending money though, right?
You are.
So you're thinking maybe say it, is it begin the improvement project planning?
Just something to think about. I mean, yeah, I don't have a.
Beginning the
exact wording, but
hydrology or the engineering, could we say?
Mhm.
I like the word begin because it doesn't say that we're gonna do
Yeah.
really anything. Begin is a good word. Well, let me get to my, up in the top where it says dear neighbor. Second line, far right side, it says storm services. So it's saying what we do. We provide affordable water, sewer, and storm services. Instead of storm services, I'd like to say drainage, because storm services might make people think that you guys provide tree removal or something like that. And I think that the word
Mhm.
drainage
Mhm.
would be, so replace storm services with drainage.
It's a good ad.
You know, I just saw this, I would think if I have a tree down in a storm.
Yeah, storm services. So the next thing I had was up in the 2022 accomplishments. We say contributed 1.6 million to joint mud drainage improvement project near the Woodlands High School. Then down below, we're talking about the same thing. The very first bullet under looking ahead, we say begin drainage improvement. They're the same project, but we use different words. So I propose the number one, you called it the joint mud drainage improvement project near the Woodlands High School. I like that. It's kind of, people know where that is. And so I guess it doesn't say which high school. Now we have two. Maybe at Cat's Cradle to tell people which high school it is, or what it's called, the Highlander High School. What do you guys think we should do about
Well, that's the
saying where
Woodlands-
that
That's the Woodlands High School versus
College Park High School?
West Park,
Oh, okay.
right? I
I'm
think
not very high
I
school.
thought it was called McCullough.
We'll see
That's
how
the-
we are.
that's the junior.
We don't know.
That's a junior high?
Yeah.
Now it is.
Oh, the one over on Panther Creek?
Yeah, that's just
Oh, that used to be the high school.
Okay, so
original high school, yeah.
Yeah.
what we have there works then, just calling it contributed 1.6 million to joint mud drainage improvement project near the Woodlands High School. Then down under looking ahead, begin joint mud drainage improvement project near the Woodlands High School. So we call it the same thing. That's my only point
What do you
there.
all call it, Jim?
We call it Bear Branch, Panther Branch Research Forest Drainage Improvement.
Panther Branch?
Cause it's gonna be both. It will
Bear
include
Branch.
Bear Branch, it's Bear Branch / Panther Branch / Research Forest Drive Drainage Improvement Project.
You want to call it that? Keep with consistent.
Yeah, well, I like what you're talking about, and maybe at the end of here, not to get too wordy, but project near the Woodlands High School, you could put it in parentheses. Panther Creek, Bear Branch, called that, put their name in it,
Mhm.
and then down here, looking ahead, just use that name. Instead of repeating the Woodlands High School and all that, so you're just saying, that's what the project is, kind of where it is. And down
Mhm.
here, we're
And
actually
begin it.
starting, yeah,
Mhm.
that's another way to do it.
I like that.
I like
That work.
Okay.
So what about the order of these? You know, I'm I'm a big fan of thinking about what are you gonna read first, second, and third, and fourth? And do you wanna lead with that? I'm not saying don't, but I just want us to think through leading with that versus reducing the tax rate. I don't want to lead with committed 4.3 million to support commercial development along FM 98, 1488.
Mhm.
And I actually wonder whether we want that in there, but that's up for debate.
Mhm.
And completing installation of automated meters. I had a different order, but
Mhm.
I started with the tax rate. I then put the, so I did the way these are 2, 1, 4, 3 is kind of how they're listed right here.
Mhm.
So 1 was reduced tax rate, 2 was contributed to the mud drainage project, 3 was completed installation, and 4 was committed to the 4.3. But that was just my kind of logic of saying from the highest priority to maybe the lowest, or
The order it's in now, because the 1.6 and then what we were just talking about, the begin, are kind of, they're at the same position number 1 at the top and at the bottom. So they're kind of, we contributed money to it and then we're gonna begin it.
okay, I
And then-
get that.
I agree, you know, the tax rate's more important than putting in the, I like the tax rate at position number 2.
Yeah, okay. Wasn't the 4.3 done in, wasn't actually?
It was our,
in
it was our
2021?
fiscal year 21, 22. It was the December meeting before you guys got on the board. And it was in 15 minutes, I've never spent so much money in my life. It was it was the 1.6 and the 4.3 in one meeting that both got passed. It
Okay,
was memorable. So I really want the 4.3 million in there because it's a significant amount. And our
Yeah,
last communication with residents, we double spoke and we didn't mention it at all because the board was different then. So I think that
I'm
this is,
fine with it. I mean,
okay.
It's been out there, we've talked about it.
yeah,
Okay.
and it's
Jim,
worded, it's
you
worded
happy with
nicer
that?
than I would have put it.
I'm okay.
I don't have a preference.
John?
1, 2, 4, 3.
Well, I
Actually, Laura likes the order that they're in. And I'm happy with that. I just want to
Okay.
have the conversation.
Okay,
That was
thanks.
Really important,
Okay.
just to talk about the why.
Okay, then down at where it says implement Bear Branch Dam repairs. Just in case we don't fix the Bear Branch Dam all in 2023, what if we put begin on that one? Because we don't want to say we can finish it all if we can't finish it all. Does that sound okay? Just start that bullet with the wrench to say begin. Yeah,
I'm good.
okay. And then at the bottom
Can I
with
ask a
the,
question
Mhm.
for, on number 2?
Help
How does help customers, how do we do that? Like, I know this, I know what the Water Smart online portal does, but how does it? How does Mud 47 and what is this group, how do we affect the outcome of number 2?
By having it available, people can see what they're using. And
Was that a goal of ours
Mhm.
for 2023?
I know in my household, you'd see how much we're spending to irrigate, and we don't irrigate as much. I was thinking about that.
So what are we gonna do? Like, are we gonna promote it somehow? Are we gonna?
And do an education on how to use it.
That it is available.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's something, so I like that. So, I mean, could we say instead of help, I don't know how we're gonna help. That's my
Educate, I
question.
see.
Communicate with, educate with, provide educational material on how customers can keep their
Promote the
little.
water portals for this reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
through,
I like
through
that.
education and something like that.
Promote
Talked to a
the
lot of
water.
people and no one's heard of it.
Okay. Yeah, I like those words. Promote the Water Smart portal to educate customers on how to reduce waste through use of,
Yeah.
of same. No, that sounds, well, John's good at this. Right. So, yeah, we want to promote education. Go ahead, John.
I do have a question. Would you consider adding a tag underneath bullet 3 under accomplishments to maybe there's some why behind that? So to help ensure proper drainage or what was the why there?
Yeah,
They're adding?
I feel like it sits out there and it's just, there's a lot of questions like, what's wrong with the dam? I mean, is it gonna, you know what I mean?
No, sorry.
Like,
You're talking
Well,
about,
that too, but I was talking about, sorry, the third bullet under accomplishments.
oh, you're back up there.
Sorry, yeah, I went back.
see that, you know, when you ask the question why, then I feel like I should just shut my lips
What is
because
the- what is the
you
public?
all already heard me say what I think about the whole thing. The minute
1.3 million is, but just to be clear,
Yes.
the listed third account.
If you wanted to put something with a positive spin on it, you could put to diversify and enhance your tax base.
to enhance our tax base. What do you think? Is that,
I mean, that's really
that's the best argument for it.
the goal for doing that.
That's the best argument for it. I say, I'm 50 years old and we won't get the money back. And I say, we're gonna flood our residents up there. But I'm gonna keep my lips shut on as far as this communication. I'm gonna try to be positive about it, and it does enhance our tax base. It makes it bigger. It's gonna be
Can
worth,
we say expand our tax base
yeah,
Absolutely.
rather than enhance? Because I think you could debate, does it enhance? It enhances it because we already borrowed the money. If we hadn't borrowed the money, you probably could enhance it by having a different payment structure, a different 100%, maybe go 50-50, 75-20. That would be something enhanced to a previous. So maybe expanding it,
Absolutely.
I like that.
which it does. It
I like
adds,
expand.
what do y'all call it? Revenue? No.
AV.
AV,
assessed
assessed
value.
value.
Wait, the cold course word,
Okay.
AV, yeah. Expands assessed value. Do you want to do expands or just?
It's like your idea. I don't think people are going to know what assessed value is going to mean. I didn't
Okay.
know it until I heard it 3 times. So expand financial, what did you say? Expand
Space.
Tax base.
tax base.
Okay,
Okay, good ad, John.
very good.
Okay,
Number-
so but then the third one now,
Mhm.
back on looking ahead, implement Bear Branch Dam repairs. We want to add some words to that. To do what?
It's remediation.
Upgrades.
It's remediation activity, kind of that.
Renew and replace. It's part
Renew,
of the
replace,
renew.
remediate, yeah.
You might not want to say repairs, just to alarm people, but you might want to say upgrades.
I like
It
it.
is technically repairs, but they're upgrading the lid, they're upgrading the vault, they're upgrading the ladder, they're upgrading that whole.
Upgrading the stabilized sand,
Upgrades.
the concrete.
Begin upgrades and implement Bear Branch Dam repairs. What do you think?
I like that.
Okay, yeah, something to bring put a little more meat on that bone. Hey, Dan.
Hey there.
Hello,
Oh, traffic.
Okay, good show. Then the very last bullet under looking ahead, start developing instead of develop integrated drainage maintenance strategy. We might not be able to finish.
Yeah, this implies it's gonna be.
Right.
It's concept.
And staff level's gonna need some help with that one. We're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
What your expectations are and how that will be accomplished.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll just
I think the trustees have to kind of put their shoulder into this as well. Right?
Well, I'm not sure I fully understand what it involves, so.
What I took from kind of the way this came about was that drainage crosses all the mud boundaries. It doesn't know that one mud 47 stops and mud 46 starts. So in order for drainage water to move through our community properly, it all has to work. The system has to work together. And you have to look at it holistically across all the muds as if it were one system. And instead of maybe doing one mud does this, cleans out their drainage ditches once every 10 years, the other one does it every 2 years. There's some things you wrote in your report about cleaning out the areas, within or mowing practices. They should just be consistent so the whole thing works as an integrated system. I think make sure that we have a strategy for that to go forward. That's what I thought we were talking about.
And I think we're there, but
Okay.
we could have a discussion about the details of that. But I think Mike and I would agree, we don't really look at muds individually.
Okay.
When we're making sure the drainage system works, we don't look at boundaries. We charge whatever's done to your mud, but we make recommendations on a holistic approach.
Sense.
And does that include even the maintenance, the mowing, and that's consistent across all the mud?
Yeah.
Some one mud does it like 6 times a year.
There was a period where one mud added 2 extra mowings a year. That's not done anymore. And all the muds are 4 times a year now. They're fertilized at the same time. They're mowed within the same cycle.
Mhm.
We have reconnaissance looking at repairs and things that need to be done to make sure they function.
So maybe this is more of an analysis of that and, kind of communicating that. Because I think if this is something that doesn't feel like that's not being done, but maybe not aware it's being done. I don't know, it came from the public.
Right.
Understood.
Yeah.
What is something we recommended?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it came from the public, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
that the public understood
Mhm.
that it is done.
Yeah, there was another comment too about, the communication or that we see what Commissioner Nowak does with the drainage ditches out by the road. And we, the muds, don't have that, more front facing maintenance going on. So, and I don't know that we do the same kind of maintenance, but I think that generally communication of what we do and making sure all the muds are on the same page, because we should address it. It wasn't something that excited me that Mud 36 at the time did 6 mowings when other muds did something else. It causes people to go, well, what about us? And so we should have, what is it in our mission statement? Manage our water with extraordinary environmental stewardship, our vision, exceptional water services. If someone said, how are they exceptional? We need to show the communication that we have that we are maintaining our drainage system appropriately if there is an extreme weather event, a rain event, and what have we done? So I think we could improve our communication. of what
So
we
maybe
do.
it's analyze and communicate you have an integrated drainage maintenance strategy.
I think that's,
So,
I understand that.
Right.
I get that.
and that gives us an opportunity for you to share exactly how you think about it, how you approach it, how you plan it. And then what the expectations are when we do have these major events. Some things will flood, but the whole thing is built that way to kind of streets to take the water and move it away and the ditches and all that stuff. and then make that part of the communication plan, which we have. Right?
I'm very good with that.
And
Yeah.
show people that this is all kind of thought about and actually executed, and it's in good hands. We should feel good about it.
Okay.
And if water gets on the street, that's fine. It's gonna go away. That's
Designed to do that.
designed to do that. That was also part of our communication. So this fits right into that, I think.
And we've got some graphics already prepared that we did a couple of years ago showing how ponding water is planned into the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with
How
that.
about that?
Okay.
approach.
Analyze and communicate instead of the word develop.
Start. Start developing, analyze and communicate.
Yeah, I think you scratched
Integrate.
develop and
Okay. Analyze and communicate.
With residents regarding integrated drainage or.
yeah, that's good.
Thank you, Katie. All right. Okay, and then my last thing I had on my list was under more about Mud 47. Our meetings are on Tuesdays at 6. So that's all from the version that's on page 27. Those are all the changes.
Because it says Wednesdays.
I see that.
Yeah. Of course, everyone might show up Wednesdays anyway.
Okay.
Well, then there's another mud meeting then. I think it's
Let them
36.
crash their meeting.
Okay,
I'm going to the wrong meeting.
how do we feel about what we have?
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
All right, I'll make a motion that we send this out in the next billing cycle in our packet and, in our, bill.
Or is a full page insert into the water bill. And that's about, how much, what was the expense roughly on that? About $1?
For mud,
page?
for mud meter, for mud people, my Mud 47
Yeah,
residents,
just for
right?
my, for the printing and the
I'd
inserting.
have to look at it.
Okay. Anyway, just,
Mhm.
it's about, I think about $1.
It's supposed to be that.
And we'll do an e-blast also.
Good,
Okay.
okay.
So the inserts, is it like 8.5 by 11? Because the bill comes like this, or are you gonna make it like a push card size?
No, I think with this, as much as it's on here, it's gonna have to be an 8.5 by 11.
Just
Okay.
fold it up.
But is that,
Mhm.
you agree?
Already.
Cool.
Very good.
Excellent.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, John, for your help on
You got a
it.
motion,
Yeah,
second.
make a motion to, okay, all in favor of this communication?
All right.
Right?
All right. Focus. I think next on the agenda is the stakeholder, LSGCD thing. Yes. Oh, no, that's the, strategic plan stakeholder meeting, your
Okay.
update, number 13.
Yeah, so I did attend. It was my first stakeholder meeting to attend. And I thought it was a pretty interesting meeting. We get the monthly updates here and they're helpful and you can read what's on there, but it doesn't come close to being in the room. I think we were there for 4 hours. Because there was a lot to discuss. And maybe what I'll kind of start with is putting together the schedule and kind of describing what's about to happen. So setting that stage is January, there was going to be an all mud director meeting that was going to be
On the 4th?
in this month, and they moved it to January
To the
now.
4th.
The 4th, yeah.
And that gets the MUDs ready to have their vote in February to direct their trustee representative to go into the March trustee meeting to actually vote on this phase of the project. That started out looking like a vote to, and also there's also $24 million of SJR existing bond funds that could apply to parts of the project. So I don't think there's an additional funding request. I think that's for this phase, that's set. The meeting quickly kind of changed to saying, well, what are we voting on going forth with either, there's a option 9, which is build everything on brand new on new land. And then there's they call the renew and replace. I don't know what number that used to be is option 3 or 2 or 1. I'm not sure what it was. It doesn't have a number. But it was to, again, build on new land, but only build half of it first and then build the second half, 10, 15 years down the road when it's needed. So that was kind of what was presented. And that took the meeting in a completely set of different directions where I think it became pretty clear that we really didn't know what the criteria were, the decision criteria, as I would describe it, on what you were going to vote for. What are the things you're going to look at to make sure that you're casting your vote and selecting the project accordingly? There had been an agreement on weighting certain parts of the project, and the overwhelming weighting that the stakeholders had done more than a year ago, I think, was the total cost of construction was going to be weighted 94%, which meant that everything else, which was water quality and some other incidentals, didn't really matter. It was all cost. I asked a question, whose cost? Is it the cost to the developer or is it the cost to the residents? And how had that math been done? And the math really hadn't been done. And then the conversation turned into, well, what about the operational complexities of building and constructing and operating on the site, on the existing site for a period of, several decades? What are the risks to injury, for incidents, upsets, and things like that? Chris brought that up, and Ed brought that up, and several of the other stakeholders who have been to all these other meetings said, well, gee, this has never come up as an issue before.
Wow.
And then what about water quality? Is the water quality going to be the same? And so all of a sudden there are all these other factors now. And it became pretty clear to some of us that there really was not an agreement on what the weighting should be. There was one, but when we got right down to it. And so I asked the question, if we don't resolve this and work on that part of it, then everyone's just going to vote kind of how they want to. If someone thinks that the schedule and the cost of building is the most important thing, and somebody else thinks it's the cost to the homeowners and the residents, or somebody thinks it's the operating environment and complexities of operation, then they'll kind of vote their conscience. And that's not what a stakeholder group should do at this point. I think they should be aligned on how you're going to say, I'm going to, weight these categories, and then kind of go accordingly, and let that process kind of take you to a conclusion. So really, really good discussion. The good thing is there was the consolidation option, which was bring everything ultimately back to wastewater treatment plant number 1, and number 2 would eventually go away. And I don't know if 3 ever gets there, but I know 2 was in there. That was kind of put on hold and said, no, we're not going to address that. Don't need to. There's plenty of life left in plant 2. There's a lot of things that go on with plant 2, kind of if it went away. And so, including the fact that the lake might be dry during dry spells, which it's not today, which would be a shock, I think, to some residents. So at the end of the day, that was that decision to defer the replacement or the consolidation of wastewater treatment plant 2 was just said, let's put that on hold. We don't have to address that now. Let's take that off scope. Kind of put it on the border and lay it up there and not have to worry about it. So that was good. That kind of eliminated a bunch of other options. So we came down to these last 2, and finally the recommendation was, let's take these 2 into the next phase of the project. The phases of the project are right now was supposed to be coming out of phase 1, which is where we are, to having an alternative that you're going to pick, and then do engineering to get to where you have roughly a 30% discrepancy cost on construction, which is a pretty good engineering estimate to be that early in a project for 30% contingency. They realized that there was not much cost in carrying these 2 alternatives forward, that the stakeholder team had to put a lot more effort into deciding how you're going to evaluate cost. I said, listen, we represent residents. It's pretty clear. We should be looking at their cost. That's what they would want. I feel pretty confident that they would want to know what it's going to cost them. And is that 100%? No, but there should be some weighting to that. Not just the total cost of ownership, which includes operating expense and things like that. So the decision was made, a straw vote was done on carrying two of the projects forward, the 2 alternatives forward into phase 2 officially. Do the extra work necessary to kind of do some evaluation, do some more financial numbers, which I think they're sorely lacking right now. to come up with these different views, decide on the decision criteria, and then in phase two, make a decision which way you're going to go. To have a all new project, all new building, and do it all at once, or do it in phases. That's really what it comes down to. And there is quite a big difference in the cost to the homeowner when you do that. So I think that was a good outcome. It was pretty good to get to that and have everyone agree to that. Everyone felt pretty comfortable after that. And so I think that's kind of where we stand.
That's fantastic.
Wow.
I'm so appreciative you went there and.
Yeah, I was glad.
represented.
I think as a new person just listening for the first time, I was able to just, maybe hear things differently. I think I did anything special other than just, sometimes it's somebody new sitting around asking really obvious questions, maybe that why aren't we doing it that way? So anyway, I think it's a good, everyone felt good about that at the end of the day. And that's how it's going to proceed.
Mhm.
So
Very
I think what we'll do is the vote that's going to occur is going to be carrying the two decisions forward. And then I think just applying the San Jacinto existing bond funds to the project. I think that's kind of the vote that the trustee will have. It's not a big carry because there'll be a bigger one come. Picking these two choices is a big decision. I'll tell you that. To the resident, I think it's a big decision.
Yeah.
So do you have enough information to be able to weigh both options, or
More
more study needs to be
Pretty
done
close,
to?
yeah.
Because from what I'm hearing you saying is that it sounds like we've got a good handle on construct or not construct, but the whole water quality issue hasn't been addressed.
Well, it has.
Okay.
It has. But what happened was that, one view was the residents don't really care about how much it's going to cost them. They want to make sure they've got good water.
You kind of want
I said,
both.
well, I think
Yeah.
they're willing to pay for good water.
Yes.
Right. They're not willing to pay everything and anything for good water. They've paid a decent price for very good water. And the question is, and this is not for fresh water. This is drainage. This is sewer stuff, right? So you gotta remember you're
Getting the water away.
you're getting water there. I think there is some new water. I think there is some water resource dollars in the project because there's a bunch of plumbing and stuff that may have to move around. I think most of the analysis has to be done financially. They need to bring some of the total cost of ownership up into a new view. Right now, it was just kind of on the developer side and not on the resident side of what they were going to see. And then there was a view that, well, if you do the renew and replace, you're going to be in the bond market probably every 10 years for 5 decades or something. And I asked, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know if that's a good or bad. We agreed we weren't going to try to project rates. That's not our goal, and nobody can. If you tell me that bonds are going to be cheaper or more expensive in the future, I'm not going to believe you either way. So we're just going to let that go. But it is extra work to do bonds. I understand that there's cost to doing that. But if you see the hockey stick in rates on the front end of doing a big project all at once, and you don't get the benefit for 20 years, that's going to be tough for most residents, I think, to get through. So, and I think it's a split decision right now if you go one way or the other. So. Yeah, so I think that's.
So which way are you leaning right now?
I don't know. I haven't seen enough information. Yeah, I didn't see the financial view I was
Right.
hoping to.
Right.
I did some on my own.
Blue
And
skying on your own.
I just kind of got my little spreadsheet out,
Yeah.
started working on it,
Yeah.
and I think I see a pretty big difference
Yeah.
on the two different projects. And I think you'd have to put yourself in a position of going into your neighborhood and your neighbors and friends and saying, this is what's going to happen to your sewer rate.
This is why.
And this is why.
this is a
Which
good
one
thing.
would you rather have? What do you care about? Do it all at once and then the future is all taken care of forever for 50 years, or do it in stages. But there's an operational complexity that SJRA has to deal with.
Right.
And that's maybe a bigger question. Do most people care about that, or is that important to them? I don't know.
Well,
I guess.
and the other thing is that you're looking at 50 years down the line is of all of these things. And when you go to neighbors and friends and they're like 5 years,
Yeah.
well, what's it going to be?
Yeah.
Because they're only looking short term.
Sure.
And a lot of them are like, I'm going to be moving by then, or I'm
Exactly.
going back to Michigan, and they don't really have the sense of, well, let's plan for your kids.
Yeah.
We may not be here. So I think the marketing aspect, the sell aspect is gonna have to be, what's the good short-term benefit? And
Yeah, the economics are gonna say one way and the
Right.
strategy would say maybe look at it a little differently. Also, they're gonna have to include the option to purchase the land. That's gonna have to be approved to start those negotiations because a bit of land, it's commercial, all commercial land right now that needs to be acquired. I think that's also part of the next phase as well.
Okay, in the stakeholder group, it stays intact for how long?
That was a question. Is this group willing to commit to another 6 months,
Mhm.
10 months-ish next year to get it to a place where we're on one option, one alternative going forward? And everyone said, yeah, we got to stick with it to make the right decision.
Okay, I see our agenda item is receive and discuss information. So uh, that doesn't allow us to do a vote, but what I would propose is, I really appreciate your input and I'd like you being a part of this group. And I'd like to make it formal that you're MUD 47's input on this stakeholder group or in the stakeholder group. So maybe we could put that on the agenda for next month too. It seems like I get nods from you guys that you would appreciate that as well. So,
Okay.
all right.
I'm happy to do that.
I won't be here next month, but
Am I running the meeting?
you will
I
be
think.
running the
Okay.
meeting and,
Okay.
and asking for votes. I'll already campaign for you. I really
Yeah.
appreciate your
Glad I
summary.
was
of
there.
the- Yeah,
Glad I was there.
we are too. I think, yeah. Thank you, Hugh. Okay, are we ready to move on?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, receive and discuss information on the 1212 LSGCD subsidence study phase 3. So I went up to this meeting in, it's almost in Willis, where Lone Star is. And so did Diane.
Yes.
Yep, and it took a half an hour for them to get through all the technical difficulties of getting people on the Zoom call. It was also a Zoom call. I'm glad I was there in attendance because on Zoom, you couldn't tell who was speaking. And it was a real drag. I've gotten that feedback from.
Well, it was, you couldn't see anything, you could barely hear, you couldn't speak. It was a.
So the way it was set up, they sat at their board table and they had their hydrogeologists along the left side. They didn't have a quorum. It was just a stakeholder meeting. So they had 3 board members and then their staff, which included their attorney who had a lot of input. That's Stacy Reese. Samantha Ryder is their general manager, and they had Kenneth Ernest, who is a relatively new board member. He won his election and was appointed a few months prior. Jim Spigner is the president of that board. And they had Stuart Traylor there, those 3. So it was not a quorum, and those were who contributed from their side of the stakeholder meeting. And then the rest was 80% Woodlands Mud directors. There were a few from,
One guy from the township.
yes, one,
Chris Nunes.
Chris Nunes, yeah. And so we were there for a couple of hours and we got a PowerPoint presentation from Keister, wasn't it Keister? So Keister described what an extensometer was. They showed a map of where they would like to have 6 of them. So just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just general area. But then they flipped it and said, well, we can't afford.
We
to
can afford
install.
one.
We can, we can only afford one. They also said they couldn't afford the one.
We
They
gotta
left
raise
us.
some money here.
Yeah, they left us with the idea that we needed to raise money. And so I was looking at their financial statements and I noticed that they have a lot of money. So I put their statement of net position on page 29. And my point in doing that was that they've got current assets, cash, to the tune or receivables net. They've got cash of nearly $4 million, and an extensometer is 1.8 million. And so I think that because that's their mission statement to study the effects of groundwater withdrawal and regulate it, that they shouldn't be looking for 100% contributions from us. So I would like for our trustee board to, I understand from an interview that Jim Spigner did, and it's out on YouTube. He did it in the last few days where he met with Hank's think tank. He says that Lone Star is formally sending a letter to Woodlands Water. I don't know that we've received it yet, but in this interview, he underscores that SJRA was not in attendance at the stakeholder, and SJRA hasn't given Lone Star any feedback on any of this process. But we need to give them feedback, even though they're, in my view, not doing the work that the residents who put them into office would want them to do. I think it's just an education issue. So anyway, I have what I wrote there on page 28 of our packet of all that went down. They need financial help. They have the loan extensometer location. They want it to be in the Woodlands. I spoke against that. The fellow that was there from Mud 39 spoke in favor of it. So that this isn't going to lock us into anything. It was just a discussion. But my reasoning is, Jim says to me, the Woodlands is always crying that subsidence is a problem. Yes, but I've always said it's actually worse in Southeast County. It's really bad in Porter. And I articulated that it's ground zero is the intersection of 59 and 99. And they've got a projected more than 3 feet of subsidence in that DFC that we agreed to. So somewhere there, or Porter or Conroe, because what we're trying to get from this extensometer is the science. Does the Jasper Aquifer compact? So let me just go through this for the knowledge of it all. HAGM is an acronym, Houston Area Groundwater Model. And the HAGM modeling, just modeling like the spaghetti models of a hurricane, it said really that the Jasper didn't compact much. And so when they ran that model for the last DFCs, they got to a conclusion that could be a better conclusion. That is that, in fact, we know that the Jasper compacts. I know it, I'll bet all the diet soda in the world on it, because Conroe is 90% pumping out of the Jasper. And we have core stations up in Conroe that are already showing subsidence. TXCN is at the TxDOT location as you go out to the airport, which is one I always point to. Definitely you're getting subsidence from the Jasper when you have subsidence going on there. So if that's what we need to prove for Lone Star to recognize that subsidence is a big deal for the county, it would be cheaper to put an extensometer in Conroe, because the Burkeville confining unit that they want to mount the extensometer in is shallower up in Conroe. So I'd like the trustee board to think about that. Fortunately, the trustee board has Neil Gaynor on it, and I'd respect his opinion on this. And I'm not saying my suggestion is the way to go, but I think that we need to think about it. And if we can help Lone Star save money by installing it in a more effective, cheaper spot. I know that Hark's recommendation did suggest an extensometer up in Conroe. So any questions? Or
About like the MUDs up in Conroe, getting them involved. I didn't see any of the MUDs in Conroe at that meeting even. Everybody that was there was
I
basically.
think they
from the
called it
Woodlands.
a South County stakeholder meeting. It was all,
So they
yeah,
weren't invited.
right. It was,
Okay.
they do stakeholder meetings, and they have in the past, this was their 3rd stakeholder meeting, and past ones have been different entities go up there. Anyway, that was
There's
just,
just all the empty chairs there, you know, we could have invited a whole lot more people.
So was the ask here to ask the Board of Trustees to support this, to pay for it,
to,
to,
my
What is
ask
the
is
ask?
for the Board of Trustees to discuss how they should respond to the letter that I feel certain Jim is about to get, if he hasn't already, that
Haven't yet.
haven't yet. Jim Swagner has articulated in his interview that he is planning to send you a letter to ask you for money and how you feel and
Okay.
all of that stuff. We need to have a response. So if the January trustee meeting had this on the agenda, that would better prepare Jim to respond with haste, because I want to get the extensometer installed as fast as possible. And I don't want us to sit on a letter from Lone Star without an opinion that is the correct opinion. Like I said before, I don't know if
they
I'm right.
don't send a letter, can we be proactive and just do it anyway? Because we want it.
Possibly, but I'm sure
And
that
then
they
it's,
will.
we know they said it was gonna be roughly $1 million. So how many pools of different muds can we get together and split the cost? Because subsidence is not just a big issue to 47.
I agree, and I also think, though, that in our letter, we could point out that we've looked at their financial statements and see that they have $4 million.
Reason to just be proactive and do it. I mean, from that meeting up there at the end, I mean, they basically were looking at us and going, we're looking at suggestions as to if you got the money, we'll do it. And they were like, any other places that you want to go get money? And I was like, well, have you gone to, like, you know, Danny Crenshaw or Morgan Luttrell or, you know, all of those guys and that to get some federal funding? I mean, it's not a whole lot of money, or even to partner with, you know, Texas A&M. Even on their map that they were showing there was a big plot of land that would be a good site, they said, for putting one of the extensometers there. And it's like, Texas A&M's got a lot of money. Why don't we partner with them, with their geology department or something?
So one of the questions I had, I don't disagree with, now I understand exactly what that is, but
Mhm.
would this draw the conclusion that we want with this group, then it, you know, kind of get to the conclusion that, oh yeah, it is compacting, therefore there is subsidence.
Well, you have science then. That's how you prove it.
I know, I'm just
okay.
asking,
I see what your point
is this
Yeah.
group willing to say, hey, if we do this, then we're gonna acknowledge this publicly and act on it?
Yeah.
That we're not just gonna have another $1.8 million spent and to say, well, that structure really does not represent the Jasper. And the Jasper is still not compacting and we still don't have this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to,
Yeah. I
maybe not, maybe they're
I
looking
hear
for this
everyone
data.
say we need more data, and I trust the GPS core stations that we have, and they're only $10,000. And with $200,000, we could do a nice grid of core stations. They don't trust core stations, so they want to spend the big bucks. And they keep winning elections. Even when they lose an election, they win. You know, that's what happened to John Yours. So the terms these guys have are 4 years. So
Yeah.
we're stuck with dealing with this for probably at least 4 years until residents vote in people that have their interests in mind. So in the face of all that, I do think we need to say, yes, we do want an extensometer, more data. The closest extensometer to this one is out by Lake Houston. So, which to me says maybe don't put one over in Porter because it could be a little bit
close.
redundant, too close.
But Conroe looks good.
Conroe does. I think he saved money and all of that. But, you know, there's smarter minds on this, and I'd like for the Woodlands Board of Trustees, like I said, you know, they've got Neil Gaynor on that board. And it's just our side, and, you know, if we could reach out to Hark, Stephanie, I can't remember her last name, but Stephanie Glenn. Yeah, they have really bright minds, and if we say from the perspective of Montgomery County residents, what's the best path forward, given that we're dealing with this Lone Star board and how they you know, don't want to trust the science from the core stations, and they need evidence that the Jasper contributes to compaction. So how do we move forward? So that's all I wanted to do, is to you know, I prepared this for the packet so that other people can see what I wrote if they want. and they can start thinking about how they want to respond to Lone Star. I'm confident that they will send you a letter. Jim's, like I said, he said it. He said he'd send you a letter, and I think he will.
And just as a reminder, we funded with a few other partners, a very detailed analysis of groundwater movement, guidance. And Hart came up with some firm recommendations from a science advisory committee that was 6 or 8 very sharp hydrogeologists around the area. And it was 2 extensometers, one somewhere in South Montgomery County, one somewhere in North Montgomery County, like the airport, like the Woodlands, like Border Heights. And then a number of other GPS stations. I think the extensometers will show you what aquifer is really compressing, and the others will just tell you how much in various areas. So the Hart
Yeah,
is
total. Yeah, what structure is actually the one that's compacting?
That's right.
Yeah. So I'm all for getting one in. I mean, you look at the entire county, less than $2 million is much, and we could be more towards just $1 million if they don't have to go as deep. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I hope that the trustees do that. Okay. Next is receive GM report.
Few items to highlight from the trustee meeting. I reported Ed Shackelford and I were scheduled to meet with the Grogan's Point resident associations by invitation to talk about the U of H article and drainage. Ed developed COVID the day before, so I went solo, and I think it was well received. Bob Lilac, as a Grogan's Point resident, was there and assisted in answering questions. So I think that was well worth the effort. Fred Letterman has asked that I share this article out of US News with residents, with mud directors. So you can take that and take a look at it. It talks about the issues groundwater is presenting in Arizona. We did report that the Audit Finance Committee had what we're calling the kickoff meeting with the St. John River Authority and their financial advisor regarding potential bond funding of our critical infrastructure and how that might impact the retail water bill. So again, that was a kickoff meeting, more meetings to come after January 1. And then Hugh can summarize our Public Education Committee meeting. It was right prior to the trustee meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
That was very worthwhile and helpful.
Yeah. Go ahead. You finish
That's all
that.
I've got.
I'll parachute in. Yeah. Let me get to that bit there.
While you're doing that, speaking of Ed Shackelford, SJRA is going to be doing soil borings along research probably next week while CISD is out to check to see if the fault's there. So that's what's going on if you're driving around there.
Okay.
You might see me on the side of the road
Okay.
in my beautiful cat sweater. I like to observe these things. Go ahead.
So the bulk of the education committee was to review the communication strategy document that John and his team have been working on. And we've been sharing drafts kind of offline through email. And I think we made a lot of progress. We ran out of time. We worked on the whole thing. We were really wordsmithing. I mean, we were down to, talking about shall versus will, things really, really important like that. But we did, I think, make some good progress on really thinking about what is the sequence of communications as you look through was it a fiscal year or calendar year? And I wasn't sure where we ended up on that, but it's kind of a calendar year, but
Well,
thinking fiscally, yeah, starting November. So it's the fiscal year, I guess, it's kind of thinking about what would you talk about at the beginning of that process, and then thinking about what season you're in is also part of it. So in the summer, you want to talk about water conservation and things like that, right? When we get in the fall, we're doing planning and we get setting rates. So let's talk about that in the fall. Outreach in the front end of the process. So that was good to kind of get their heads around what we're going to do. And this is an evergreen plans. So you kind of, lather, rinse, repeat. You do it and you improve it and modify it and do it the next year and the next year. So it's an evergreen process. We had Erin Kinney from Hark was there, so which was good. So what I learned from her was I said, well, what is Hark doing now? I remember them doing a lot of hardcore, research and development. She said, we were really more into the communication side of what is being done out there in the world of data and structures and helping either the recipients or the developers of data and modeling and scientific information to be communicated more effectively and have a hand in that. So it kind of fits into some of this work that we're doing, not only as a water agency, but even I think in the subsidence area that might fit their bill quite a bit. So I think we got to the place where you're going to turn the draft another time, John, and then we're going to are we going to share it in January? Is that what we decided? I think that's what we decided, right?
Yes, I think we will be ready.
We felt that you guys are going to make the changes. We didn't need to really bless it another time, that we'd gotten it kind of close enough to start putting in the hands of each of the MUDs and see what that communication plan is going. We talked about the budget for it. There is a budget for communication that Jim has. It's not going to be enough, but it's going to be a good start. And we're not really sure what the total scope of the costs are quite at this point. It may not until we get through a whole year of this, right? I mean, I think there's some debate as to how big it's going to be, right?
Depends if we want to evolve the scope.
Yeah. So mindful of the budget, but recognizing we can probably go over a little bit and be okay. The budget's usually managed very, very well, where there's some places where you can draw on in that event. So I think it's really in a good place. A lot of work that John and his team have done a great job pulling this together. And I think we got a good document that all the MUDs should use and contribute to and understand so that they can be aware of how the constituents are going to be communicated to and be mindful of what they're being told. So it's good.
Great.
I'm excited about it.
Good show. All right. Did you have more to add on the trustees report?
Actually, that was it. The educational
That's it.
committee, I was going to do that. The
Mhm.
personnel committee met and approved what was proposed. So that was really the bulk of it that I have here. Yeah.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Mhm.
We don't need to go into executive session or reconvene. No public. And as far as matters for placement on future agenda, we've got the vote for waste stakeholder representative. Anything else? I think everything else kind of goes to
Yeah.
the trustee board.
Yeah.
So, all right,
That's it.
then meeting adjourned.